All right, let's dive in. Today on the deep dive, we're tackling a topic that's rapidly reshaping how public services are delivered, all while navigating one of the most critical privacy frameworks globally.
Hmm.
We're talking about generative AI and its essential partner, the General Data Protection Regulation GDPR, specifically tailored, for the public sector. Our mission to unpack how organizations can truly harness AI's incredible potential while rigorously safeguarding citizen privacy and remaining fully compliant with robust regulations. We've pulled from a comprehensive guide for this deep dive, a real practical roadmap that lays out how these new cutting-edge technologies integrate with established legal frameworks. You're going to discover some unexpected alignments and clear pathways to leveraging AI confidently, understanding the robust commitments that are protecting your data every step of the way.
Yeah, and what's truly central to this discussion is the dual challenge and opportunity facing governments right now. They urgently need to accelerate their digital capabilities to meet rising citizen demands, often with, well, very tight budgets. Generative AI offers powerful solutions, promising efficiency gains, better decision-making, and even increasing satisfaction among civil servants. But, as you rightly point out, the critical aspect is doing it correctly. Ensuring privacy and the well-being of individuals are paramount in every deployment.
Absolutely. So, what's on our agenda today? We're going to explore Microsoft's holistic approach to responsible AI, then dive into how the core principles of GDPR seamlessly apply to this new technology. After that, we'll get specific, looking at services like Copilot for Microsoft 365 and Azure OpenAI service. It's all about empowering public sector organizations like yours to use AI with confidence and compliance. Okay, so you've laid out the immense opportunities for efficiency and better service, but as we all know, with great power comes great responsibility. How does a company like Microsoft approach that responsibility, especially when working with sensitive public sector data?
Well, Microsoft has a deeply ingrained, long-standing commitment to responsible AI. It's not something new for them. Their development and deployment are guided by 6 key principles, which align remarkably well with both public sector priorities and, interestingly, the fundamental tenets outlined in Article 5 of the GDPR. These principles are fairness, meaning AI systems should be designed without bias or discrimination. Then, reliability and safety, with built-in mechanisms to prevent errors and minimize harm. Also, accountability, ensuring creators and developers are accountable for their systems. Privacy and security, obviously crucial, respecting individual privacy and data security. Inclusiveness, making AI accessible and usable by everyone, including those with disabilities. And finally, transparency, so systems should be explainable and clear.
Those principles sound deeply aligned with what public sector organizations need, especially regarding data protection under GDPR. How does Microsoft operationalize this commitment both internally and for their customers?
Internally, they've established the Office of Responsible AI, which sets governance policies across the entire company. They also published their internal Microsoft Responsible AI standard back in June 2022, providing concrete, actionable guidelines. Now, public sector organizations can directly use these same principles as a robust framework to evaluate the AI systems they're considering or using.
That's a practical framework then. Beyond internal standards, are there specific tools and commitments that support responsible AI deployment for customers?
There certainly are. One is the AI Assurance Program, which helps customers ensure their AI applications deployed on Microsoft platforms meet legal and regulatory requirements.
Okay.
Then there's the Customer Copyright Commitment, which is a significant reassurance.
Right.
It extends their intellectual property indemnity support to both Copilot for Microsoft 365 and Azure OpenAI service. So if a third party sues a customer for copyright infringement resulting from using Copilot or Azure OpenAI, Microsoft will defend them and pay judgments or settlements.
There's always catch, right?
Provided the customer use the built-in guardrails and content filters.
Yes. That customer copyright commitment is certainly a powerful reassurance. It addresses a major concern for many public sector legal teams, I imagine. Can you elaborate just a bit on those built-in guardrails and content filters?
Sure.
What exactly are those, and how do they ensure compliance for the customer using them?
Absolutely. These guardrails include features like content moderation, which screens for harmful outputs, and responsible AI filters designed to prevent the generation of inappropriate content.
Oh,
They're built directly into the service and help ensure that even if a user's prompt is problematic, the AI's response is, well, mitigated.
I see.
And as for data governance, risk, and compliance assessment, Microsoft also offers Microsoft Purview, which is a comprehensive suite of solutions designed to support customers in those areas. This really sets a positive context for the immense opportunities generative AI offers the public sector. enhancing citizen services, boosting internal efficiency, deep data analysis, acting as a creative aid, and even strengthening cybersecurity.
Okay, we've built a strong foundation in responsible AI. Let's shift our focus now to the regulatory side, specifically the GDPR. For many, it's the bedrock of data privacy. How exactly does it apply when we introduce something as, well, new as generative AI?
Right. So the GDPR stands as a global benchmark for privacy rights, information security, and compliance, currently in force across the UK and all EU countries. Its core goal is fundamentally about protecting the fundamental rights of data subjects and creating a level playing field for personal data processing. It applies to any public sector organization processing the personal data of European residents, regardless of where the processing actually takes place.
This brings us to a truly interesting point. Many might assume generative AI means a whole new set of rules, but the true aha here, perhaps, is that GDPR, drafted years ago, was remarkably forward-thinking. It's fundamentally technology agnostic. This means those core principles like purpose limitation or data minimization apply just as robustly to an advanced large language model as they do to a simple database. Is that right?
Precisely. That's exactly it. The GDPR's foundational principles apply in the exact same way to generative AI as they do to any other processing of personal data, like using traditional cloud services. This means established risk assessment and compliance processes can still be leveraged. You don't need to start from scratch.
So you don't need to reinvent the wheel just because it's AI. That simplifies compliance immensely for public sector organizations.
Exactly. It allows them to leverage existing frameworks rather than start from zero.
Okay, this brings up a critical question for any public sector organization then. When you're leveraging these powerful AI tools, who holds what responsibility if something goes wrong or if data isn't handled correctly? How do we clearly define that split?
Yeah, that's key. Under the GDPR, there's the data controller, which is the entity that decides why and how personal data is processed off of the public sector organization itself. Then there's the data processor, which processes data on behalf of and upon instruction from the data controller, typically Microsoft for its online services, including these generative AI services. Compliance with the GDPR is a shared responsibility. Microsoft provides tools and contractual commitments, while the customer determines how the tools will be used and what personal data will be processed.
Makes sense. So what are Microsoft's concrete privacy commitments in this AI era, especially when dealing with sensitive public sector data?
Microsoft's existing privacy commitments extend to their AI commercial products, and they're backed by their Data Protection Addendum, their DPA. There are 7 core commitments that apply to customer data, which, importantly, includes all prompts and output content.
Okay, 7 core commitments. Let's hear them.
First, your organization's data remains private. Simple as that. Second, you're in control of your organization's data. It's not used in undisclosed ways without your permission. You can even fine-tune models for your organization's own use, and those fine-tuned solutions are exclusively for you.
Right.
Third, existing access control and enterprise policies are maintained. Fourth, your organization's data is not shared with third parties without your permission. Fifth, your organization's data privacy and security are protected by design throughout development. Sixth, and this is perhaps the most crucial commitment for public sector organizations, your organization's data is not used to train foundation models without your permission.
That's huge.
It is. In an era where data privacy headlines abound, knowing that your sensitive government data, your prompts, your outputs, will never inadvertently train the underlying model, nor be accessible to a third party like OpenAI. That's a game changer for trust and adoption. It means your internal policies and sensitive information remain truly isolated.
Wow, okay. And the 7th?
And seventh, their products comply with global data protection regulations.
That's a strong set of guarantees, especially that point on data not being used for training. Let's look at some key GDPR obligations now and how Microsoft supports customers in meeting them.
Sure. Under transparency, Articles 12-14 of GDPR, data controllers must inform data subjects how their data is used. Microsoft provides extensive documentation, like the guide we're drawing from today, to help you understand how their AI tools process data and assist you in updating your privacy notices. For data subject rights, Articles 15-21, things like the right to access or to be forgotten, Microsoft commits contractually to enabling customers to fulfill these requests and will redirect data subject requests directly to the customer. Tools like Microsoft Purview can also assist here.
Right.
Now, for processor obligations, Article 28, public sector organizations must ensure data processors provide sufficient guarantees. Microsoft's Data Protection Addendum contractually commits to all Article 28 requirements, covering aspects like subprocessors, processing only on instruction, confidentiality, security assistance, breach notification, DPIAs, and data return deletion.
But what about customizing those agreements? Can organizations negotiate specific terms?
That's a fair question. It's important to understand that for hyperscale cloud providers like Microsoft, given their immense global scale and the sheer number of customers, offering fully custom data protection agreements for every client simply isn't operationally feasible. Their ability to deliver manageability, security, and global scalability relies on standardized terms. But the key is that even with standard terms, their data protection addendum contractually commits to all the robust Article 28 requirements.
Got it. Standardized but comprehensive. What about security measures?
Yes, regarding technical and organizational security measures, Article 32, both controllers and processors must implement appropriate security. Microsoft contractually commits to these measures, including ISO 27001, 27002, and 27018 compliance, and encrypts customer data both in transit and at rest.
And impact assessments, DPIAs.
Right. Data Protection Impact Assessments, DPIA, Article 35. These are required for high-risk processing, especially with new technologies. Microsoft provides information to assist with completing sections related to processing operations, security measures, and compliance. Even if not legally required, doing a DPIA is generally good practice.
Always good practice. And data transfers, that's always a hot topic.
Indeed. For international data transfers, Articles 3450, where personal data can be transferred outside UKWIA under certain conditions, Microsoft utilizes valid mechanisms like the EU's Data Privacy Framework Certification and EU standard contractual clauses. And an important development here is the EU data boundary. This is a commitment to store and process customer data within the EU or EFTA.
Ah, that simplifies things.
It does. It simplifies GDPR compliance by reducing the need for international transfers. And both Copilot for Microsoft 365 and Azure OpenAI Service are EU data boundary services.
Okay, we've built a strong foundation, understanding responsible AI principles and GDPR. Now let's bring it down to earth a bit. What does this look like in practice with some of Microsoft's leading generative AI services? Let's start with Copilot for Microsoft 365. For our listeners, what exactly is it and how does it specifically interact with their organizational data?
Sure. Copilot for Microsoft 365 is essentially an AI-powered productivity tool that works alongside popular Microsoft 365 apps like Word, Excel, Teams, Outlook, and so on. It uses large language models, or LLMs, to provide real-time intelligent assistance. Importantly, it's built on the same cloud infrastructure and adheres to the same existing privacy, security, and compliance commitments as Microsoft 365 itself, including all its GDPR commitments.
Okay, so it inherits those protections. How does it actually use your personal data within an organization?
All right, so Copilot for Microsoft 365 connects LLMs to your organizational data within your Microsoft 365 tenant. That's your calendars, emails, documents, meetings, contacts. But, and this is key, only in accordance with your existing access permissions.
Only what you can already see.
Exactly. This is called grounding. Think of it like Copilot having your organization's entire internal knowledge base, your documents, emails, meetings, right at its fingertips, metaphorically speaking. When you ask it a question, it doesn't just rely on its general knowledge. It intelligently references your specific data to provide a tailored, highly relevant answer. And crucially, it does this without ever learning or retaining that private data. The LLM itself is stateless.
Stateless, meaning?
Meaning it doesn't remember your specific prompts or conversations from one interaction to the next. This is vital for maintaining data privacy and preventing information leakage. Also, Copilot for Microsoft 365 does not interact with OpenAI services like ChatGPT, and OpenAI is not a sub-processor in this context. That's an important distinction.
Understood. And what about security specifically for Copilot for Microsoft 365?
Well, as I said, the same rigorous security and compliance terms apply as for Microsoft 365. It's hosted in Azure infrastructure, benefiting from comprehensive enterprise controls, reliability, redundancy, availability, scalability, all that. Key protections include logical isolation of customer data within each tenant, rigorous physical security for data centers, and multi-layered encryption of data, both in transit and at rest, using technologies like BitLocker and TLS. It also complies with ISO IEC 27018 and Microsoft's Security Development Lifecycle, which includes specific AI threat modeling and red teaming to find vulnerabilities.
Red teaming, like ethical hacking.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
Proactively trying to break it to make it stronger. And as mentioned, Copilot also respects each user's existing access permissions. It will only access data that a user already has permission to view.
And where does your data actually reside for Copilot for Microsoft 365?
Copilot for Microsoft 365 is an EU data boundary service.
Yeah.
So data generated is stored in alignment with existing Microsoft 365 data residency commitments, including advanced data residency and multi-geo capabilities offerings.
Okay, clear. Let's turn our attention now to the Azure OpenAI service. How does this platform empower organizations, and what are the privacy implications here?
Right, Azure OpenAI service is a bit different. It's a cloud-based platform that allows customers to build and deploy their own generative AI applications, leveraging powerful LLMs like GPT-3 and GPT-4. Importantly, Microsoft fully controls this service. They host the models directly in Azure. And again, it does not interact with OpenAI services, and OpenAI is not a subprocessor. Microsoft runs it.
So, more of a platform for building custom solutions. How can organizations utilize Azure OpenAI service with their own specific data then?
There are a few key ways. One is prompt engineering, which involves designing specific queries or instructions for the LLM to generate content. Pretty standard. Another powerful option is Azure OpenAI on your data. Here, you use your own configured data store like Azure Cognitive Search to retrieve relevant information and augment the prompts sent to the model.
So grounding again.
Exactly, grounding again. This allows models to run on your organization's data without training or fine-tuning the base model, with answers grounded in your specific data sources. Finally, there's Azure OpenAI fine-tuning. This is where you provide your own training data to actually fine-tune an existing LLM, creating a new custom LLM optimized solely for your organization's specific needs and terminology.
And just to be absolutely sure, the data usage commitments.
Let me reiterate clearly. Whether it's grounding with on-your data or fine-tuning, your customer data is not used to train the underlying foundation LLM. The foundation LLM remains stateless. Your data prompts, outputs, any embeddings generated, and your fine-tuning training data is exclusive to your organization. It's not available to other customers, it's not available to OpenAI, and it is not used to improve Microsoft or any third-party products, period.
Crystal clear. What about preventing abuse and harmful content generation with Azure OpenAI service? That's a big concern for many when building their own apps.
Absolutely. To mitigate those risks, there are two key features integrated. First, content filtering. This synchronously examines responses using automated systems without storing the data or involving human review for the filtering itself.
Okay, automated checks.
Second, abuse monitoring. This is a separate process where authorized Microsoft personnel may access data, specifically prompts and completions, for debugging and investigating patterns of abuse. Now, for customers in Europe, this human review is conducted exclusively by Microsoft employees located in the European Economic Area. That's a significant point for data sovereignty concerns.
That EEA point is important. Is there any way around the monitoring?
Yes, there's also a limited access feature. Customers with specific approved use cases, perhaps due to internal policies, or applicable law restricting storage can apply to disable abuse monitoring and associated data logging. This ensures prompts and completions are not stored at rest by the service.
And what's the overall security posture for Azure OpenAI, similar to Copilot?
Fundamentally, yes. Security is built in throughout the development lifecycle, from inception to deployment. It's hosted in Azure, so it benefits from all the comprehensive enterprise compliance and security controls inherent to Azure: reliability, redundancy, availability, scalability. Their security development lifecycle includes specific steps for AI threat vectors, including that red teaming we talked about, to proactively find vulnerabilities and ensure proper mitigation strategies are in place before things go live.
Right, and data residency for Azure OpenAI service, also EU data boundary.
Correct. Azure OpenAI service is also an EU data boundary service. Any data sources you connect for the On Your Data feature remain in your designated location, under your control. Training data and the fine-tuned LLMs you create are stored within the same region as your Azure OpenAI resource, all within your Azure tenant. And for European customers, that abuse monitoring data we mentioned is stored in the Azure region where their resource is deployed, kept within the Azure OpenAI service boundary, and reviewed only by those EEA employees.
So we've covered GDPR extensively, but Europe has another major piece of legislation looming, or rather arriving, the AI Act. How do these two crucial frameworks interact, given that both seem designed to protect fundamental rights? Are they overlapping? Conflicting?
That's a great question. The GDPR and the AI Act are distinctly complementary. They're really intended to operate alongside each other, not in conflict.
Complementary, how so?
Well, the GDPR primarily focuses on the processing of personal data and giving individuals control over that data. Its scope is personal data protection. The AI Act, on the other hand, applies to providers and deployers of AI systems themselves. Its aim is broader, ensuring fundamental rights, safety, and ethical principles across the entire AI lifecycle, with a particular focus on high-risk AI applications and those powerful general-purpose AI models.
Okay, so different focuses but related goals.
Exactly. And we see their interaction in several ways.
Mhm.
For instance, the AI Act actually refers directly to GDPR's data protection impact assessment obligations. It requires deployers of high-risk AI systems to use certain mandatory information from the AI Act compliance process to help fulfill their GDPR DPIA duties.
Ah, so they explicitly link up.
They do. And of course, the GDPR naturally applies whenever personal data is processed, whether that's data used to train an AI system or data being processed by an AI system in operation.
So understanding GDPR compliance is not just crucial right now, but it's also a significant step towards future AI Act compliance, too.
Precisely. Getting GDPR right lays a very strong foundation.
It really speaks to the foresight of those who drafted GDPR, doesn't it? That it's still so relevant and applicable for something as fundamentally new as generative AI.
Absolutely. It's quite fascinating, actually. It's a testament to focusing on the underlying rights and principles rather than getting bogged down in the specifics of any single technology. That's the real power here, I think. It allows for innovation, but within a clear ethical and legal boundary.
A key insight here, then, is how these foundational principles of data protection, like those baked into the GDPR, are remarkably robust. They're strong enough to guide the responsible adoption of cutting-edge technologies like generative AI.
That's right. It's not necessarily about creating entirely new laws for every single new technology that comes along, but rather about applying established wisdom and existing legal protections effectively.
So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you, our listener, whether you're in a public sector organization trying to navigate this, or simply a curious learner? It means you can confidently explore generative AI, knowing that partners like Microsoft are demonstrably committed to robust privacy, security, and compliance. They're backing their promises with clear contractual commitments like that DPA, extensive technical documentation, and importantly, constant engagement with regulators. They're really trying to stay ahead of the curve. Ultimately, embracing these technologies responsibly with these safeguards in place can lead to more efficient, more inclusive, and more responsive public services for everyone. It's about leveraging innovation while actively building and maintaining public trust.
And this raises an important question, perhaps, for you to consider as we close. Given these comprehensive frameworks and the strong commitments we've discussed today, how might you start identifying the specific high-impact generative AI use cases within your own context, your department, your agency, that could truly transform services for citizens, knowing these robust protections are actually in place to support you?